whatever you're trying to achieve, go for that. Like try to get their experience. And I think it's way cheaper. I think education and paying someone to do it right is way cheaper than ignorance.
Real Estate Investing Profits presents Profit Masters with your host, world-renowned real estate coach and investor, Corey Boatwright. Now, strap in and get ready to learn elite wealth-building investment strategies taught by 6- and 7-figure house flipping masters as they reveal their best real estate investing profit secrets to you right now.
What is going on, my party people? My name is Corey Boatwright. I am your host and founder of Real Estate Investing Profit Masters podcast series, and I am excited to spend some time with you. I have a really cool guest on today. He actually just recently joined our mastermind group, Collective Genius, which if you haven't heard about that, go check that out. Definitely make sure you check out what's going on there. And his name is Chris Miles. Now, Chris, you might have heard of him. He has an actual podcast called Money Ripples. And he teaches you on really how to be the bank. I'm really figuring out a way that you can use some ways to get extra money coming in that you may have not considered. Kind of considered the anti-guru on what he teaches, the anti-financial advisor on how he teaches you to use your money. And you're going to learn some things today that I think you're going to go, aha, I never thought about that. So make sure that you take good notes because it is going to be a good one today. Also, make sure you download your Ultimate Real Estate Investing Quick Start Guide, the down and dirty Ultimate Real Estate Investing Quick Start Guide, by going to and texting the word profit to 38470. Text the word profit to 38470, and automagically you will get the link for that PDF. A lot of thousands and thousands of folks have downloaded and had great things to say. Also, if you're interested in learning about wholesale coaching, we do about 100 of those a year and really got some good systems and processes in place on how that's working to get out of your business so you can have the business work whenever you are sleeping, which is cool. Go to Corey's Coaching, Corys Coaching, coryscoaching.com and apply there. All right. So here is Mr. Chris Miles. Chris, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, great, Corey. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Live your life. What's your background say?
Yeah, what does it say? Live your life now, not tomorrow.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, how you doing?
Man, I'm loving life, man. Like, I guess I'm living it for now, not tomorrow, right?
You and those 7 kids, right? How many? You have 7 kids or 20?
It's close. It's 8. Yeah. So, yeah, 6 of my own, 2 with my wife, 2 that she brought to the marriage. So blended family. It's like a Brady Bunch, but there was no room for Alice.
It's awesome. Well, thanks for taking time to be on here. You know, we talk normally a lot about real estate investing, but we have service providers that pop on. We have some other folks that come on that serve other real estate investing side of working with investors and either from investing from their IRA, or also I know that one thing you're specializing in is kind of the infinite banking strategy.
Right.
And, you're deemed like the anti financial guru, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to take the time to really just say kind of who you are and what is your ideal client, who you're looking for, and then we'll roll into some other questions.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, like you said, I'm kind of like an anti-financial guru, anti-financial advisor, right? Because I'm against mutual funds. I'm against doing all the traditional stuff you've been taught to do because, well, really 17 years ago, I started out doing that. You know, I was a traditional financial advisor, told people to save everything, spend nothing, basically live a crappy life until hopefully that someday you might have enough for retirement. And after doing that for 4 years, I realized after looking at people that had advice for 20 years or so that they weren't any better off, really. They weren't living the life that they thought they would. It was kind of this massive overpromise, underdeliver type of scenario when it comes to financial advising, right? So I left that, vowed never to go back to it again, and that's where in 2006 I started getting into things like real estate investing and whatnot, and actually was able to retire in 2006. So I quit being a financial advisor so then I could actually do what works, which is the opposite of what they always tell you to do. And that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. Like I came out of retirement in 2007 and started teaching some of this stuff. And I even went through the recession, went from millionaire to upside down millionaire. And so I had to dig out of over $1 million debt hole during the recession, but I was able to come back and it was about a little over 2 years ago, I was able to retire once again and do it better this time around. So it's a lot safer, much more stable streams of income. Plus I have more kids. So it was more of an uphill battle between the debt and the children, right? Like I had to really build that passive income up quite a bit more, but yeah, here I am and just loving life and teach people how to do what I do every day. And my main clients are really the ones that want to challenge the status quo. You know, those that think that kind of realize that, hey, saving into this 401k or whatever, or, you know, even if they're like, you know, I work with a lot of dentists and doctors, like even them, they're like, I could put my own money into my stuff, but I know I could be doing something better with this. I know that I want to get my money actually working for me, so I don't have to work so hard for my money.
Sure.
So that I work because I want to, even if you love your work, right? You can work because you want to, not because you have to.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of the people I've been working with, and basically people that want to do like what I'm doing right now.
Your mic, I think, got a little softer there. You might want to adjust it or turn it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I stepped away from it more.
Yeah. There you go. That's better. But we can still hear you. It's just got a little softer. So it's pretty interesting because, again, we deal with a lot of real estate investors, and you got involved with real estate investing, but really where you have put all your emphasis and focus is on creating this better future, if you will, right? A better future for all of this investing that you're doing. And instead of saying, I want to make, 3 or 5% in the bank for, whatever many years, you actually create momentum with the investing strategies that you teach. And I want to get into that. I know that's what many people are wanting to hear right now is what are those strategies. But I want to know, before we go into, who were some of your influences that have really got you to where you are today?
Yeah, there's been a few. For example, I remember starting out, like Robert Kiyosaki, of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? I mean, it gets you to challenge it, which was really weird because I was a financial advisor and I was proclaiming that I was teaching what he taught, which he's completely against the stuff that we teach in financial advising, right? But I thought like, oh yeah, I teach this stuff. But it wasn't until I met some guys that were more local to the area where I live here in Utah, right? One actually has since passed on. A guy named Les McGuire was a guy that was kind of a business owner. He actually did things with financial planning, but he was also an investor. And I learned a lot of stuff from him doing a radio show that he did locally. And it totally rocked my world to the point that it really inspired me to quit my job. As a financial advisor, like even at the height of my practice, I shouldn't say job because it was my own practice, but it got me to quit. I was like, I'm done. I will never teach about money again. I can't stay in integrity and teach this crap. So I'm just going to do mortgages as a mortgage broker. And then I'm going to teach ballroom dancing at the local university. And that's basically what I did for a few months. I was just doing that. And so they were a big influence in me. And there's so many others too. I mean, there's just been people along the way that have, influenced that, but they really kind of got my foundation started, got me understanding real principles, not just of investing, but of money and wealth in general.
Right. That
made making money easier, even outside of the typical investment space, even in business space too.
It's, you said you're pretty eclectic, right? Ballroom dancing, mentor, but there's something there that had to been like an aha moment. There was something there that probably opened your eyes of like, wow, there's a better way. Can you share a little bit about that before we start getting into really what we call your Profit Master investing strategy is, or how you're helping others achieve their dreams and goals?
Yeah. So kind of go back with me a little bit. End of 2005, I was questioning some of the stuff I was teaching. Like I realized that in order for people to retire based on what I was offering with mutual funds or different insurance products or whatever, really, I mean, I would have to I would have to fluff numbers, right? I would have to kind of lie. I would have to say either inflation's a lot lower,
Right.
taxes aren't as high, the rate of return might be better than it is in reality, all that kind of stuff, right? And I remember it was right after Christmas, and I called up a guy that had actually trained to be a financial advisor but quit. He had just quit 4 months prior to do real estate investing with his dad.
Wow.
And I kind of told him, like, well, good luck with that. Let's see how you do. And if you come back, crawling back, asking to work with me again, right?
Right.
And 4 months later, I talked to him. I was like, so how's everything going with that whole real estate thing that you're doing? And he said, oh, man, it's awesome. Like my dad, like even he's a professor at a university, he's doubled his income just doing the real estate stuff just in the last 4 months.
That was in 2005. That was like
this is 2005, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but it was like beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, it was obviously taken off. I mean, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to make a lot of money in real estate in 2005 and 06, right?
You could Mary, you can get a loan, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And so when he told me that, and he wasn't even doing a lot of the investing, they were just doing like hard money lending and things like that, And I was like, shut up. Like, that's not true. Come on. And at the time I was kind of moving away from mutual funds. I was teaching people how to trade stocks and options. So I was a stock trader too, right?
I was a day trader for about 9 months. I sold blue chip stocks. Yep. So I don't miss
I used to teach people how to swing trade and stuff. And
oh yeah, I don't miss the days of 3 and 4 monitors and news, and I don't miss them.
No. That's in my opinion, that's way more work than doing real estate investing,
Yeah, a lot of stress.
But yeah, I mean, we kind of went back and forth, like, what's better, stocks or real estate, and finally he just stopped me. He said, Chris, all right, what principles are you teaching your clients right now? I'm like, what do you mean by principles? What is that? Like, you talking about Rule 72, compound interest, He's like, not even close. Not even close. All right, let me ask you this question. Maybe this will help you out. How many of your clients are truly financially free off the investments you've been recommending? And I thought, I'm like, okay, well, I've got like some retired doctors, and now they're still watching CNN because they're freaking out. But I mean, anybody who watches CNN will freak out. It doesn't matter how much money you have, right? Like, CNN sucks. Yeah. It's like a communist news network, Right. And so I'm like, well, none of my clients are financially free. If you think about like actually feeling free. He's like, well, okay, well, good job. Okay, let me ask you this, Chris. If anybody's got this investing stuff figured out, shouldn't it be you guys that are financial advisors? So how many of you are financially free, not off of the commissions you're earning from selling the stuff that hasn't worked, but actually from doing the investments yourself? And I thought a little bit, and I was like, none? Maybe one guy I can think of that might be. And I found out a few years later he wasn't, because once he got fired from that company, he was scrambling trying to make money, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it was all a facade for him. It was
not surprising at all. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's like, well, there's your problem. I'm like, okay, none of us are financially free. It hasn't worked. That's proven. I can't argue with evidence. So I'm like, fine, tell me the answer. He's like, I'm not going to tell you the answer because I don't think you'll even believe it. I don't think you'll even do anything. I'm like, okay, I'm going to break your kneecaps. Like, seriously, tell me the answer. Like, you got me admitting I'm wrong. You give me something. He's like, all right, well, if you're serious, and I really don't think you are, go get another book by Robert Kiyosaki called Who Took My Money, which basically rips into mutual funds, right?
Right.
And he's like, and listen to this radio show that's on every morning here, locally on this AM station. Listen to this radio show where these guys are millionaires teaching about investing and stuff. And that's how I started. I got the book that day, and I got the audiobook, right? So 3 hours later, I was done.
Yeah.
Got that. And I was like, okay, I get it, because I've been teaching stock trading. I know that mutual funds suck. And I even stopped selling mutual funds that year, right? And then of course, I started listening to that radio show, and they weren't even teaching strategy. They were just teaching about principles like, like dollars follow value and, and those kind of things, right? Like really like what's the essence of what makes an investment or anything for that matter pay you, what makes people wealthy.
Right.
And that got me started. I listened to that for a few months, and then finally went to one of their events. And that's when I realized, I'm like, they're saying like, yeah, you're in it for the long haul, but how long is the long haul when the market goes down? And they say high risk creates high return. Well, how is that even possible? And all this stuff. And that's what got me to shift. And I was like, yeah, who would teach that crap? And I was like, oh, I'm probably the one out of 100 people, the one financial advisor in this room. And so that's when I quit. That was my breaking point. I was like, okay, I can now see it. I don't know exactly all the investments to do, but I can now see that what I'm teaching is wrong. And that opened me up for a whole new world. And yeah, they did real estate investing and stuff and hard money deals and whatnot. But it was that moment, between what my friend had brought up, those 3 key questions of what principles do you teach, how many of your clients are financially free and how many are you financially free, that got me to totally question everything that I had been taught.
It's so interesting. I used to sell Kirby home cleaning systems in my teens. I'm thinking about, I used to knock 100 doors, put on 3 demonstrations, and sell one $1,600 home cleaning system, i.e.
Wow.
vacuum cleaner. And I got really good at doing this to the point where I could sell 2 and sometimes 3 in a day. And I remember getting awards selling 3 in a day. And there was one point where I stopped. And I remember very clearly when it was, is a lady, very old woman, that loved this home cleaning system. She loved everything. She was just ready to just write a check. And I lost faith in my product. I stopped believing in my product that day. And there was some reasons that led up to why I was at that, but it was a breaking point whenever she was ready to go. Old woman, just kind of shook a little bit when she moved. She was happy cleaning, but it was I just knew that what I was selling her wasn't what she really needed.
Right.
And there was this point where you lose faith in your product, or you lose faith in your sales.
Exactly.
And then, then it just comes down to that aha moment where it's like, okay, now what am I going to do? Right. But in your case, you had another alternative that opened up, right? You saw another path that was actually the better path. And that led you to not only doing what you're doing right now, helping others, but it helped you with your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. It opened up a whole new door, because it's kind of like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Right.
Right.
And that's what happened. Because I remember just that same December, I went to see my dad. He's like, all right, tell me, what can I do? He was at that time about, just in his early 60s, and he had hoped to retire, right after Y2K, right? Everything was going roaring in the 90s. He's like, if this keeps going like it is, I'll be able to retire in the early 2000s, and then he couldn't, and the market tanked. And so now this is, 2000, almost 2006 by this point. Right. And so he's like, what do I have? And I remember as a financial advisor from that mind thinking, well, the only asset you really have, you only have a few $100,000 in your 401k. You've got a paid off house. I mean, the only thing you got is a paid off home. So you can use the equity to create more cash flow. Then maybe, if you can create better returns, then that could be good. He's like, great, let's do it. What do I do?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. Because if I'm honest with myself, anything I put you in, even if they're guaranteed to not lose money, they still may not make enough to beat the interest rate you're paying on your home.
Right.
And I was like, I can't guarantee it. And so I was lost. And then all of a sudden when I started to push my friend, I was like, well, tell me, what are these strategies you guys are doing? He's like, hey, some of us are making 2% a month, 3% a month on these hard money deals, and they were pretty rich, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why I didn't last forever, for some of those returns, but they were paying pretty nicely. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, 2% a month. I do the math. I'm like, holy cow, you could actually retire off this.
Yeah,
you could actually make this work.
a year, roughly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just blew up this whole new world, like Aladdin, right? It's like a whole new world. It's kind of like that, so it was so cool. It was like, and so that's the funny thing is I got excited. People didn't even know what changed about me. They just knew something changed. They're like, what's going on? You seem different. I was like, oh man, if I just told you half what I'm learning, it would blow your mind. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. So what is your investing strategy now? Well, give us a couple of things that is really working well. That can give people just a peek. Obviously, we have a little bit of time here not to get into all of it, but just a peek into what's really working well for your investing strategy. We call it Profit Master investing strategy.
I'm like a simple kind of guy. I don't have to do anything too complex. I don't believe in over diversifying. I'm kind of like a Buffett guy like that. I don't like to go throw money everywhere.
Right.
Two or three main areas that I put money in. I mean, I do lending deals, because I do like some of this passive stuff, right? I love turnkey real estate because I really don't want to be an active investor. Like I admire the people that do things like fix and flips and they're doing wholesaling and stuff. But for me, I just don't have the passion, right? Because once I was able to retire, it's like, well, what do I spend my time doing? So for me, that's the two areas, right? And then the third one is through my teaching. But the thing I learned that was pretty cool is I was able to create like joint venture and affiliate type stuff. In fact, that's how I retired the first time much more quickly, was because, I remember a guy asked me, he was one of the millionaires that I became friends with. He's like, well, do you like doing mortgages? I'm like, nah, I hate it. Like,
no, not so much. Yeah.
it's like, I love teaching and giving them the strategy, but I hate dealing with the paperwork and the underwriting and everything. He's like, well, why don't you refer that out to somebody else and just split the deal? I'm like, I could do that, couldn't I? And in scarcity, you think you just got to do it all yourself. You're a do-it-yourselfer. How much money can I make an entire transaction? Now all of a sudden I was like, wait, I could do that. I do the things I enjoy, but delegate the things that I hate. And so I did. And then, I'd spend a half hour or so with a client. And in fact, usually they were friends and family. I stopped promoting myself because I was like, I can't do financial stuff anymore. But people still came to me for questions. I was like, hey, go talk to this guy. Here's a cool thing you could do. You cash out for your mortgage, go and invest it. You can actually have your mortgage paid for, things like that. Things like, wow, that's amazing. Where do I go? Talk to that guy, and he'll do your application. And then a month or a month and a half later, I get paid. I was like, that's kind of cool. Who else can I do that with? And I did it like with a wholesale jeweler. I get a 5% check from them occasionally. I do with all these different businesses. I'm like, these are people I'm referring to anyways. Why not just think about asking them if they have a referral program, right? So that's what I do. Even with my podcast, like I occasionally will have sponsors, but I get paid from the advertisements that come through. So I get streams of income from that. I get business streams of income when there's certain people I might refer to or that have educational programs that my people say, hey, I want to learn that. I want to do short-term rentals or whatever, right? Like, there's so many different ways you can get paid. And the cool thing is it doesn't even require money to make money to do that kind of stuff, right? It's all about, the relationship capital, not just financial.
Yeah, that network. Yeah, and the relationship capital.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got my business going from like 50, 60 hours a week to now like 10 to 20. And that's mostly because I want to keep teaching. I do my podcast. I still take on consulting clients and whatnot, but it's basically just doing what I do for fun. And then the rest of the time, my wife makes me go grocery shop and clean house and
for the kids.
Things like that.
So you have Money Ripples right now. This is your podcast. You talk about a little bit on the infinite banking side. Can you dive into that just a little bit on, I know people listening right now, they have mutual funds. They've been taught their whole life that, you look over a 30-year, 40-year period, mutual funds historically will perform at 8-9% or whatever they're being sold more and more, so or even higher. But the reality is with inflation and with everything that's happening with our economy not always going up and going down, not always following the treasury bill, all this, what are you finding now that is a better alternative, right, to going the traditional route?
Yeah. I mean, and this, anytime you deal with anybody who's an investor, we laugh and balk at mutual funds, right? Because, one, you take all the risk, but there's like lackluster returns because the average return of the stock market's 10%, right? Give or take. But the actual return, the real return that if you were to put in a calculator and it works is 7.5.
Yeah.
And that's before taxes. That's before fees.
Right.
You're lucky to average after taxes like 5%, right? Which sucks.
You can stomach those big drops.
Yeah. And that just depends if you have the right timing. Because if you're like my dad, he had to delay his retirement for 15 years because of the stupid stock market, right? And so it's actually really easy. So what I look people to do is I tell them how to create a supercharged savings account, right?
Supercharged savings account, okay.
Yeah, which is basically that whole infinite banking strategy. Instead of using a savings account that you earn 0.0% on,
right,
and you get taxed on that 0.0%. Instead, what if you had a tax-free savings account that averaged like 4 to 5% a year?
Right.
Because if it's tax-free, you could actually potentially beat your mutual funds and even your 401k, even with the match sometimes, right?
Right.
But here's the cool part. And this is what works with what you teach, Corey, because it's not just let the money sit in there and do nothing, which you could, right? You could let it just build. But I will tell you, there is no way anyone can become financially free from any product that a financial advisor offers. even if we're talking about whole life insurance like we're talking about here.
Right.
In and of itself, it will not get you retired. So the key is you get the money in there, just like a savings account, pull it right back out and invest it. And the cool thing is you can actually do a line of credit with the insurance company that's private. It's not on your credit at all. And in fact, there's not even a minimum monthly payment. The deadline for getting the loan is death. So as long as it's paid, and then you can just use the death benefit to pay it off, right? And then still get some. But what happens is if you do this leverage, what happens is you're borrowing from it, but the money is still in there growing and compounding while you use the cash flow. Say you put it into some sort of real estate deal, right? Whether it's a turnkey property or even if it's like you're doing a fix and flip or whatever you're doing or wholesaling,
right?
You take the profits from that, put it right back in, that pays back towards the loan. That money goes right back into savings to turn around and do it again. So it's kind of like getting a 401k loan, but the difference is that you get paid much better and there's no worries of taxes or using after-tax dollars. It's much like using a Roth IRA, but you can access it like right away.
Like a checkbook Roth IRA, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but there's no limit. You can't. It's no like, hey, you can only put in $6,000 a year, which never gets you there.
You can also use personal, so you can take the personal. You don't have to have a business always, right?
Yeah.
And talk about the tax-free side of it a little bit.
Yeah, it's taxed just like a Roth IRA. The only difference, right, or the main difference, I should say, is that there is no 59.5 rule, right? So what I teach my clients to do is I have them say, and we try to max fund it so we can get the least amount of cost possible with the max cash so you get a better ROI on the life insurance and in the investment you're doing. So even to say the investment you do will make you 20%. The cool thing is that, I mean, if you just liquidate your savings, well, then nothing's being made in the savings. You're just making it that 20%, which is still awesome. But the cool thing is if you're using the life insurance, you're making a net of at least 3% over here while you're making 20% over here, meaning you're making 23% a year average, right? So it's just, and especially if you're in a high tax bracket, it's even more effective because you're doing this all tax-free. You know, I'll tell you, and you can dump in, have people doing $5,000 a year and have people doing like $500,000 a year.
Yes, yeah, it's incredible. So walk through at $100,000. I have 100,000. Someone's thinking about, right? Okay, I got 100 grand. I'm going to put it in the bank. I'm going to put it in the stock market, or I'm going to put it in with what you teach.
Yeah.
Walk us through, obviously the alternative for what you teach.
Yeah. So instead of doing the 100 grand just into your savings and investing it, we'll put it into life insurance. Now, if it's the first year, that's the most expensive year with cost. The cool thing, most life insurance, is usually like a cost that increases over time, like with term insurance.
Right.
This one goes down over time. So the first 2 years is the only 2 years you actually feel the cost. After that, it's like cost free, like it nets cost free. The interest on it is already paying for itself.
And it doesn't. Does it change, or is it fixed rate, or how's that work?
It changes. Yeah, it's really based on how you structure it. But say you put in 100 grand, the most expensive year is the first year. That's when most of the insurance costs come out. You'll probably have access to about 75 grand that you can use. So now some people say, well, I can just put 100 grand in savings, just liquidate it and go put it 100,000 somewhere else, right? Which is true. But the cool thing is even with the 75,000, right, you can go and create leverage and be double dipping on your returns.
Yeah, you're getting a return on that 75,000.
Right. So you get more arbitrage. There's better tax breaks and everything else, right?
Right. And the 25,000, are you losing the 25,000, or are you regaining it later on?
Yeah, that's going to cost. So that's lost, so to speak. The next year you dump in 100 grand, about 90 of it will go in. The third year you dump in 100 grand, you'll probably have like 105,000 going in.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. You have more. Right.
So by the fifth year, usually is the year that you'll say, hey, I put in 100 grand a year, put in 500,000. I now have at least 500,000 in here. So now, but the thing that really makes it work is because we have that double dip effect, right? Because we're earning compound and we're able to borrow from it. So even when you factor in like buy term and invest a difference, like I used to have a lot of real estate investors say, because some of them got it. Some of them would use the strategy while others are like, well, that just takes money out of my pocket. I'm just going to leverage everything I can and buy cheap term.
Right.
But when you actually really look at it over the next, 5+ years, you end up beating it anyways, because the fact that your term insurance costs fully gone. Like once you pay for term insurance, that's it. if you don't die, you've lost money, right?
That's saying usually
It's death insurance.
not a 30, it's like a 20-year term, right? Not a 30.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you end up going in the hole much faster, where using this method, you actually end up getting a much better ROI on the cash you had been using anyways.
Interesting. I think that many are thinking about right now that there's ways that they didn't know there's ways that they could actually borrow against their own money and get a double-digit return.
Yeah.
And I think that also it's something to be said there too, that it's not like a super active thing, right? You're making money based on where you have it parked, essentially.
Right.
So I want to be able to dive into this more, but we'll have a way that people can contact you to find out more about this, because I know that you are just scratching the surface here. I know it's also circumstantial. It's not one size fits all. So, and you're certainly not an attorney or a legal representative here, but I love all the creative ideas, and I love the fact that it's worked for you. It's allowed you to retire. You went through some ups and downs, and I love that you felt something from the pain of going through that recession, but still coming out on top. Really says a lot about you. We talked about what your breaking point was. What are some of the challenges that you deal with in this strategy? What are some of the things that potentially look out for to keep your eyes open about?
Yeah, the biggest thing, people talk about dividends, like, different companies pay different dividends. That has very little to do with it. It's all about the costs, the underlying costs, and how to minimize those. So when I structure it, I try to make the minimal cost possible to still keep it in the tax-free limits, right? And basically, the more insurance you have, more death benefit you have, the more you can dump in. That's why I had one client that did $500,000. He had to get a $10 million life insurance policy on his wife to do it, but then he's starting to just immediately funneling $500,000 into it, every single year. And first year, I remember he took out a loan for $385,000. It's like, all right, I'm investing in this sucker. Let's do this and start leveraging it right away. Like in the first couple months, he did that. So the downfall would be is that one, you could be in horrible health, right, and that could influence and make the cost more. That's a big one. And so ways we worked around that, like I had a dentist that was a problem, so we just did it on his wife instead.
Gotcha. Okay.
Got on her, and then her costs were way less, and he's just banking through hers instead. Other pitfalls could be really, if you try to buy from even a normal infinite banker type person, a lot of times they'll mess it up. They'll put more cost into it than it needs to, because here's the problem I see is I'm probably one of the only guys I know that doesn't need the money from insurance. That's the problem. Most of them, that's their livelihood, and so they battle between, maybe like you did as a Kirby salesman, right? They battle between how do I make a living but also still give them a good deal.
Right.
And they battle that self-interest conflict, right?
Yes.
Whereas me, I came out of retirement 2 years ago because that guy I was doing $500,000 said, hey, teach all my investor followers how to do this, because no one does it quite like you do. And it took him like 4 months to convince me to actually do it myself. So, but once I started doing it, it was so much fun. I'm like, this is awesome. And it was better than the people that I knew that were doing it already. I would come out with better numbers. I'm like, well, why refer it to you if you're going to charge people more money? So let's do this better, So that's a big one that I run into. Like sometimes people have a policy, but it's not set up in a way to actually, it's not set from an investor perspective.
Got it.
So you gotta come from that angle. So that's some of the biggest dangers right there.
Okay. What is a big lesson that you've learned to get to where you are today?
Biggest lesson is trusting my gut.
I like that.
There's been many times, I remember even before the recession hit, I remember feeling a little bit nervous and on edge because my pride came in, right? I started thinking I had the Midas touch, so whatever I touched turned to gold. And then all of a sudden it didn't. And I remember there's times I had those promptings, those feelings deep down saying, whoa, like all the hair raising, kind of back of your neck type of things.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like my pecs. They just go crazy, But yeah, I mean, something happened. And so I didn't listen to that. And I'll tell you that even in business, like when I've gone against business coaches' advice because I was like, I'm not going to do more of this. I'm going to do less. I'm going to do things that are totally counterintuitive.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go the opposite way. I'm kind of a heretic a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's worked wonders. And so if there's anything I've learned, even with investing, and I taught this even with stock trading, is that, if there's that little thing in the back of your head or whatever that's telling you, hey, there may be a warning, listen to it.
Listen to it. It's good advice. I went against it before, and it's really cost me. You have to start all over again. Some people, what are ways that you would change some things you've done in the past? Like, how would you start all over again?
That's so tough because it's from the things I experienced, even the pain, that became my gain, right?
Right.
So there's kind of that part of like, well, I kind of liked it. I mean, I hated it. It sucked, right? But it's the experience that kind of made you wiser the next time around.
You learned from it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely listening to my gut, listening to my intuition was a big one. I think the other thing too is before the recession hit, I cut off some of the streams of income I had made. I cut them off thinking, hey, you know what? I'm fine. I don't need them. And so this time around, when I was able to retire the second time, I made sure, I'm like, I got to make sure there's multiple streams here so that even if one stream is gone or two or three, I've got backups. And so like I counted the other day because I'm doing a podcast episode on my show here pretty soon, but I have about 14 different streams of income coming in, or different sources, right?
That's awesome, right?
Obviously real estate's one of them, and different types of investments, but a lot of them are through businesses or other places too. And that is way more reassuring for me than it was when I had maybe 3 or 4 back in 2006.
Sure, makes sense. Do you have a motivational quote that you like the most?
Oh man, I don't know. I can't quote it, but if you know the Theodore Roosevelt quote that talks about it's kind of like dare to do mighty things. He'd rather be the person that's marred in the arena and that has the blood and the sweat and the tears, but you basically rather come in crashing and burning than living a life of complacency and life of yeah. And so that one has really spoke to my soul quite a bit is just reminding myself that I can be comfortable with my lifestyle and just be with my family. Like I could be like some people are like, I just want to take care of my family and then I'll be happy. And for me, I feel like the family is the world. That's why I have the company Money Ripples, is that ripple effect that ripples out through your community, country, and across the world from you being liberated and free. Right. And so I think that's, for me, that's why it was kind of big. It's like, no, like, even if I can be comfortable, I can back off and not work. But I noticed that when I don't work, the fire dies. If I work too much, I burn out. But if I work too little, the fire doesn't kindle, so you gotta be the right balance. Yeah.
It's entrepreneurial. There's always that entrepreneurial fire that's always there, and it goes out and it really cuts the light out from how entrepreneurs, process things. And for us, I believe that a lot of that is the journey and the excitement and the learning and, that journey on a daily basis. And it's not right for everyone. It really isn't.
Always growing and progressing.
Yeah. I used to think it was, but it's not right. And thank God that not every person is an entrepreneur.
That's right.
It's got some great highs, but it also has some big lows. And sometimes those lows can be so hard that it makes you just want to quit.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that more successful people I've ever met, they never allowed the word, give up to be entered into their vocabulary in terms of completely stopping the journey of moving forward with doing something with their lives, doing something more than just being mundane and complacent, like you said. So,
yeah, even when I was in the $1 million plus debt hole, I was in the hole $16,000 a month, where I was short that much per month.
Right.
I remember thinking, like, why am I going through this?
Right.
I remember praying to God, like what's supposed to be happening here? I thought I'd be able to get out of the situation. I worked my tail off. I'm trying to make it happen. It's not happening.
Not happening.
and I remember thinking, you know what? Even if I came through this on the other side, which I knew I would, but I was like, whenever that happens and however it happens, if it could help at least one person, that would be worth it, right? It would be worth the pain. And
started being grateful, right?
Yeah, start being grateful, kind of like your grateful project, right? Like it's kind of like that.
Awareness. Right. Yeah, and I think that's a great way to process it too. Is you're serving other people. It's bigger than you and than yourself. And getting outside of yourself, it helps a lot. Do you have a book that you recommend? I know we talked about Rich Dad Poor Dad, but do you have any other books that really have changed your life?
Yeah, if you're going through a lot of crap right now, two books I recommend. One's by some of my friends, Greg Reed and Sharon Lecter, who wrote 3 Feet from Gold,
Right.
like the 21st century version of Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
Great book. And then the other one, even though the author is not as popular today as he used to be, is Donald Trump, called Never Give Up.
Never give up.
It's the least arrogant book that I've heard of his. So Never Give Up was good because it talked about all the crap that he went through. I mean, I thought I was going through a horrible towards the end of 2009. I was just about to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I remember reading 3 Feet from Gold and Never Give Up. And I remember in Never Give Up, him talking about being $900 million in debt. And I thought, that's like 1,000 times more in debt than I am.
Right. It gives you good perspective.
You put that perspective, you're like, my stuff should be easy.
Yeah, he saw this person that was homeless on there, and they were asking for like $1 or whatever. And I remember thinking, if he traded places with that person would actually be in a better financial position than he did, because he was
exactly
$900 million in debt, and that person just had, didn't have any money. Yeah, it was crazy. The crazy book. That's a great book. Do you get 8 hours of sleep at night with 8 kids?
Not usually. I'll usually get at least 7 though.
Man, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. What's your morning routine?
Mornings, I usually wake up. I've realized praying does not work first thing in the morning because I'll fall back asleep. And so I'll usually get up and move, So the first thing I'll do, 3 days a week, I run because I do like half marathons and whatnot. And then 3 days a week, I do strength workouts. Sunday, I take a break. Then when I can come back, a lot of times I'll do prayers of gratitude when I'm working out and things like that, kind of get myself in the right place mindset wise. I'll listen to, like audiobooks, like on Audible, I'll do that a lot of times if I'm driving around, pray, read scriptures, things like that. Anything just to put myself in a better state. So when I start the day, I'm rocking and rolling.
I love that, man. Yeah. So, I mean, that makes all the difference in the world, to move, because whenever you get up, I mean, you're groggy, and if you don't change that state, like immediately, it really can wear on you.
Oh yeah.
So man, that's really good. I don't think anybody's ever said on the show before, just move. So I think it's just ironic to say that, but that's true. What are you most grateful for right now?
I think the biggest thing I'm grateful for is just, it's the things that I often will take for granted. Like I realize that sometimes I forget because it becomes a daily routine how wonderful my life is. Like I mean, this morning, I did like a few calls before we did this, this interview. But this morning, like I was making a menu with my wife, and we went out to go shopping while her girls were at school. So we had that kind of alone time, that date time, and that's in the middle of the day when all the other moms are rushing around with their little kids trying to take them to the stores, and we're kind of hanging out, and I just think about that. And then after I'm done here, I'm pretty much going to go and have fun again, hang out with the family again. And I think that just having that lifestyle, all the sacrifice and all the pain that I had to go through to now experience this made that bitter and that sweet, that opposition, so much better.
The lifestyle design, it's crucial. I think it's a very important point to make, because many listening right now, they have somebody else dictate their lifestyle.
Yeah.
They have a boss, they want to quit work, but they just can't because fear, and mixed with wisdom, mixed with, no kind of financial cushion there and all this other stuff. And so they listen to somebody else dictate the way they have to run their day. And as an entrepreneur, one of the benefits is that you don't have that ever, except whenever you don't build a business and you still treat your business like a hobby, which a lot of business owners do. They don't get a team. It's all the me show. You're the CEO, you're the sales guy, you're all the hats. And that is really just building not a business, but a big job that is a facade called a business. So I think that it's great to just really be aware and be grateful that you don't have to have that job. You don't have to have that boss that's telling you when to get up, when you can go spend time with your wife and your kids. And it is something you take for granted because it happens so much as your normal thing when you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of strange in the beginning that you can just go do what you want and then you can quote still get paid if you have a team that's doing things. But it's also a lot of a sacrifice and a lot of investing of your time. So good on you to experience that, and I think that many people can learn how you've done it. What point would you recommend a mentor or coach? How important has one been to you?
Oh, very important. I mean, as you know, I mean, we met through Mastermind Group. I've kind of realized that my best mentoring is happening through masterminds now,
Yes.
and even just through a single mentor, even though that can happen still. I just noticed that whatever my goal is, whatever I want to accomplish, if there's certain place I'm trying to go, then I hire people for that. Like for example, I went to a sports chiropractor today, because I sprained my ankle 3 months ago. It was gnarly, and I want to get back into shape, and so I hired him. He's like, he worked on like a lot of the Utah Jazz, like John Stockton or Karl Malone, if you remember those guys, right? And he's like a miracle worker. And I just did my first session with him today. I'm like, holy crap, I can actually run without some pain. That's pretty cool. And we're not even done yet. We're just warming up. And
wow.
And like, I have a massage therapist that works stuff, and he's works with like bodybuilders and whatnot. And so all that stuff that I can, invest in, it's huge, So even if I don't always go the business and financial route like I used to do more of, now it's more like health route I'm starting to hire people for. So it's whatever you're trying to achieve, go for that. Like try to get their experience. And I think it's way cheaper. I think education and paying someone to do it right is way cheaper than ignorance.
Oh, totally. That's expensive. Ignorance is really, really expensive. What is it that really gets you up in the morning? What is your why?
This right here, like, I really feel like if there's anything to be learned from my life, that there's a message of hope, right? Like, even all of the crap that I went through and everything else to be where I am today, and knowing that there's most of the people I talk to are currently in better positions than I was when I was trying to create that hope and, almost riding on the fumes of faith. Right. So that hope is what gets me up every day. If it weren't for me being able to do my podcast and the people that I will consult and things like that, even if it's just part-time, I don't know if I'd have a purpose to get out of bed much, other than maybe I want to go work out, but it's really that mission, that mission of what can I give? What kind of legacy can I leave behind me that really makes a difference?
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Legacy is something that we tend to be thinking about later. But, starting to think about it now is a great motivator. It's a great way to create your vision, where you want to be, in life. Thinking about what you're going to leave behind means you have to create something now,
That's right.
You leave behind. So, and if you're not motivating, think about your kids, think about your why, find that bigger why, and it will push you. It'll push you in a good way. Chris, what's the way that we can get in touch with you? How can we serve you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to learn more about your strategies, maybe have a onboarding call to talk with them, strategy session? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to kind of learn more of what I teach, easy, free place to go is you can just follow my podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show.
Chris Miles.
Put lots of time and attention to market, figure out what marketing and what name to give my show. And my fans actually came up with that name. I came up with all this cool cash flow, whatever. They're like, just call it the Chris Miles Money Show. Like, let's make it simple.
Simple.
So,
I like it.
That's a great one. And then, if people have questions, you can always just email me, chris@moneyripples.com. And that's the same as my website, moneyripples.com as well.
Money Ripples. All right. And follow you on Facebook, on Instagram. Do you have
Yep.
both of those? Okay.
I don't have Instagram. Like, I haven't figured that out yet. I mean, I don't even use my Pinterest account, but I do use Facebook quite a bit. So I've got a Money Ripples page on Facebook as well.
Okay. All right. We'll have them follow you there. I'm going to take and put a lot of this in the show notes. So anything that you mentioned, any references, anything like that will be in the show notes. So thank you again for taking the time to be on here and share some of this. Again, I know we scratched the surface, but there's some big things that folks that work with you could really dive into on a deeper level to really go through if this is the right step for them or not. And I think it'll be exciting to have a conversation with you if that where they are and where they want to go. So I know anytime that you have an opportunity to get double digits and you can be passive essentially at it, you can create what's called specialized knowledge and capitalize on that. It can really help you a lot.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again, Chris. I appreciate you.
Yeah, same here. Appreciate it as well.
Thanks for being on here, and stay tuned for another Profit Master investing strategy and interview, and we'll bring some amazing guests like Chris to you. Bye now.
Hi, this is Corey Boatwright, and I have a quick question for you. What is the fastest way to reach your goals? Is it to work harder, work smarter, use system and processes, or hire rock star employees? What about just making more money? Actually, it's none of that. Those things are a byproduct of the one success component that every real estate investor or business owner that I know all have in common. And the answer is clarity. Complete laser focus on what you want, why you want it, and what are you willing to do to get it. So where do you find clarity? By hiring a coach and mentor. Now, could you reach the level of success that you want to achieve by doing this all on your own? The Lone Ranger. Well, maybe, but do you think it would take you double or even triple the time to achieve it compared to hiring a coach and mentor to help guide your path, provide proven instruction with a tailored blueprint that you could follow for building a real estate business that supports your lifestyle and helps you reach your financial and personal goals? Absolutely. Here's the fact. Time isn't recyclable. So I would like to ask you to make good use of it and extend a personal invitation for you to book a phone coaching strategy session by going to callwithcorey.com. That's callwithcorey, Corey spelled CORY.com. I'm going to ask you a few quick questions on that page, and we're going to go over and see how we can make sure that your business is on path to reach the goals that you want this year. So go to callwithcorey.com, that's CORY, and book your phone coaching strategy session today. Remember, be a servant, and I'll see you on there.
You've been listening to another Real Estate Investing Profits Master podcast series. To receive your free real estate book, Down and Dirty, Ultimate Real Estate Investing Quick Start Guide, how to quit your job to start flipping houses in 90 days or less, head online and go to realestateinvestingprofits.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Real Estate Investing Profits. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.